السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، أسعد الله أوقاتكم لكل خير. طبعا معكم كراوزر RPG. اليوم يا جماعة الخير بنتكلم عن رزدنت ايفل ريكويم مع الجيم بلاي الجديد اللي شفناه اليوم يا جماعة الخير، وكذا متبقي 30 يوما، شهر بالتحديد لنزول اللعبة كاملة. زي ما انتم شايفين يا جماعة الخير الجيم بلاي جدا أسطوري بمعنى الكلمة. شفنا جيم بلاي خرافي ما بين ليون وغريس كرافت. شفنا بعض الأمور الغامضة والمثيرة للاهتمام في رزدنت ايفل ريكويم.
What surprised me the most about the hands-on, however, is how quickly Requiem's ticks and tocks pass back and forth.
طبعا يا جماعة الخير قبل لا نخش للجيم بلاي لا تنسونا من ذكر الله والصلاة على النبي ولايك وشير وسبسكرايب مشاهدة ممتعة.
Returning badass Leon. There is, after all, an ebb and flow between the two. At one point the game makes a cutscene-bound statement when Leon swings into action and essentially one-shots a beast that previously appeared invincible as it terrorized Grace. The two represent the two stripes of Resident Evil. Grace's gameplay defaults to a first-person, plays similarly to Resident Evil 7, and is meant to evoke the classic horror of the earlier entries. Grace scrabbles around zones for keys, having to carefully use scarce resources to survive. Leon channels Resident Evil 4, defaulting to third-person with more linear, all-out action. With Grace, I'm constantly saving my game at typewriters as I make slow and steady progress. As Leon, when I happen across a typewriter I'd previously used as Grace, he can't even use it. I expect he doesn't need to save, because his sections, at least in this hands-on, appear relatively linear and thus easily checkpointed. It goes on. Leon has a parry. Grace does not. Leon gets more readily plied with powerful weapons, but as Grace, you're lucky to find ammo for your pop gun pistol. So yes, there is a to and fro there, but honestly, I'm not really talking about that. Grace's play is sort of the heart of this hands-on, and I expect it to be the heart of the game. While the Grace-Leon split seems unlikely to be something like a 50-50 in terms of content volume, by a hint of how they play, Leon tears through the same environment as Grace in half of the time. That was certainly the tale of the demo, which broadly speaking was made up of 3 sections. Leon arriving at the Rhodes Hill Hospital in a brief action set piece, Grace exploring the hospital while desperately scrambling for resources necessary to stay alive, and then later Leon tearing through these same areas you'd explored as Grace in an action-packed rerun. The better part of 2 hours of the 3-hour hands-on was the Grace section. The Rhodes Hill Medical Facility is a pretty classic Resident Evil zone. Semi-open, with key-carded doors, locked boxes, and plenty of zombified enemies to either engage or avoid. These objectives will have you crisscrossing from one wing of the hospital to another in search of items required to escape. All while a creepy Jigsaw-esque evil doctor watches via CCTV and periodically intervenes in person, with the zombie situation gradually escalating over time too. It's here where I was most impressed by the pendulum. That back and forth that Requiem director Koshi Nakanishi had previously told me was built on the foundation of a graph of tension and release. As Grace, I was perpetually scrabbling around in the dirt for anything I could cling to as help, but it swings hard. One minute I'd have my back against the wall, barely any health, real-life heavy breathing in a state of panic as I cower in a side room and pray that an enemy has either lost me or is unwilling to enter the room I'm in. Tick, the pendulum swoops. Next, after a bit of scrabbling around the map with that you're almost dead red tint at the edges of the screen, I find stuff, some herbs, some bullets. Tock, I'm back in the game. This didn't just happen once over 90 minutes of Grace, it happened over and over again, at a speed and ferocity that just didn't occur with Resident Evil 7 or 8. It is, as the director suggested to me back at Tokyo Game Show, the glorious satisfaction that comes with the pattern of tension and release. The zones, the combat, the objectives, and the way enemies act are all built to need like that. Speaking of the enemies, it's here where perhaps Resident Evil 9 offers its most interesting twist so far. It's a simple one that has been explored in countless zombie media over the years, that zombies might retain some of their human traits post-transformation. In Resident Evil 9, this manifests as zombies with habits or fine motor skills beyond just shambling around. Some zombies are sensitive to light, and you can mess with them by flicking light switches on in the corridors. They'll then dutifully shamble to the switch and desperately paw at it to turn the lights off, making it a great way to lure and separate groups. You can also stun these guys by blaring your flashlight right in their face. A maid continues to clean after death, paying little attention to you unless you disturb her. You are in a hospital, so there's a couple of guys who were clearly in for eye procedures and have another problem. They can't see at all, blinded by medical blindfolds. These zombies thrash particularly violently, but luckily they're only attracted by noise. In other cases, the life hangover is simpler. A cook continues to butcher meat in his kitchen after death, making sloppy use of a giant knife. And, if you're not careful, Grace will be the next on the slab. Singers continue to warble in their zombified state and can emit ear-splitting screeches if they spot you. There's also chunks, which basically means fat zombies. Zombies with a lot of timber on them, meaning ordnance grazes off and does little damage. A posh name for very scary bullet sinks, basically. And, worst of all, there are blister heads, which is the name Resident Evil 9 gives to a previously downed zombie that, after some time, reanimates, rising again with its head bloated up into a terrible, bulbous mass. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage to show you what these creatures are like, so you'll just have to listen carefully and imagine it for yourself. I hated, complimentary, this in particular. You'd go into a room where you'd previously cleared it out to nab an item or use something in the environment, and then hear the sound of a previously dispatched enemy rising again behind you. Cue swearing. As this Grace section progresses, the hospital is split into distinct east and west wings with a safe zone atrium between them. You'll travel back and forth, gathering items and keys in order to unravel the mysteries of the hospital, including characters and events I won't speak about here, and a handy room where you can trade pilfered coins for upgrades to Grace's durability and skill set. Eventually, you'll end up in a situation where there's powerful enemies in both wings. These aren't quite full-blown stalker enemies, for they are killable, but more like mid-boss level foes that are better to run from. There's a sense of non-linearity to all this too. The guy next to me at the hands-on tackles the objectives in a completely different order to me and makes his life more miserable as a result, as one of his actions spawned in a hugely powerful enemy probably 30 minutes before I did the same, which, again, is neat to see. It's these foes that begin to justify Grace's nuclear options. First, there's a powerful pistol bequeathed from Leon that'll blow most, but not all, enemies away. You only have one bullet for this, and crafting more is expensive as hell. You're best to save it for a real messy situation. A little more cheaply, though, you can craft injectors. These make zombies outright explode. I craft one of these and sneak up on the toughest enemy stalking the hospital's west wing and stick him with it. Boom. That saved me a shed load of bullets and a lot of sneaking, and, as a bonus, someone who exploded him into bits can't rise again as a blister head. You can sense from these descriptions, I imagine, how these swings come about. You're back against the wall, chased by a gang of zombies, but then you scrabble together some crafting materials or ammo and the game flips on its head. Fast forward a little while then, and it's back to Leon. If Grace's section is full of little swings, this is the big swing. Leon is completely different, as indicated by everything right down to a different HUD, or Indeed, by the fact that his section faces off with a one-on-one showdown against one of the enemies that Grace had just found nigh impossible to kill. After that, Leon finds himself spat out in the same area you had just been exploring as Grace, but with one other small, notable wrinkle. Because Leon visits this area after Grace, whatever you'd got up to as her remains. If you'd lured zombies to different rooms from where they naturally spawn, they remain there. Found a box of bullets or a herb and didn't pick it up? It's there for Leon. Killed a big enemy? You've cleared the path for our boy. Didn't? It's his problem now, but he has a shotgun. At the dying stages of this hands-on, it's a last little tidbit, something to make me think. Like the non-linearity of certain objectives, it whiffs of exciting sequence breaks and speed runs, as well as player agency in general. All told, this final hands-on can consider mission accomplished. I left it far more excited for Resident Evil 9 than I went in. I think that mad lot might just do it again. And certainly, with its
اوكي، واخيرا يا جماعة الخير كده يكون نهاية التجربة هذه. اوكي صحيح فيها حرق، ولكن عشان نسوي الشكوى لله لازم ننزل محتوى عن رزدنت ايفل ريكويم. طبعا يا جماعة الخير زي ما انتم شفتوا، اتمنى تحطوا لي تحت تعليقاتكم وآراءكم للشيء اللي انتم شفتوه، وما عاد بقي الا شهر واحد متحمسين عليه، فلا تنسونا من اللايك والشير والسبسكرايب. نشوفكم ان شاء الله على خير في تختيم هذه اللعبة، ونشوفكم على خير وفمان الله.
During a cutscene, we almost imperceptibly take control